the link, the link in the description of where Fnaf TD's server would be at. So yeah, I will put a link into the description, linking to where Fnaf TD's server is, if you guys want to join that, if you're not there. But I want to talk about Bowler today, right? Bowler is a tower you get by beating Bonnie Bowl on Nightmare mode. And this is his stats in total of what you get for beating him on Bonnie Bowl. So, Bowler is a tower that costs $800, does 5 damage every 6 seconds, and has 20 range with splash damage of 5, and splash rate of also 5. Now, but his DPS is only 0.83. The reason why it's not higher is because when they do stats, right, they don't count his splash damage of being part of his actual damage output. Because this is his normal damage. And then this is his fire rate, which is 6 seconds. So he does every 6 seconds he does 5 damage. Like, yeah, he has 20 range, but you think about it, he has 20 range. He basically, if it's a fast animatronic, he is doing 5 damage, right? I want you to think about this. 5 damage, or even if it's a medium, slow, or whatever animatronic. The animatronics can basically get halfway through, and then he'll shoot them then, and you might have a bad chance of him when he shoots. There can be still like 5 animatronics yeeking from him, because it takes him 6 seconds to shoot. Alright. Now, let me show you guys something. This is the Bowler rework I did. Placement being $600. Fire rate being 4 seconds. Damage being the same. Range being the same. Splash being the same. However, splash radius being nerfed because his fire rate being 4 seconds. Which is 2 seconds, yes. So I think that's fair. And his placement being $600 sounds more fair than putting him down at, you know, $800 of doing 5 damage every 6 seconds. That's just terrible. No offense. Level 2, I turned this up by $400 instead of it being $250, and that equals up to $1,000. However, Bowler's total cost originally is $1,050, so it's $50, yes. And again, nothing changed because his fire rate is still 4, his damage is still 5, his range changed. Oh yeah, and his range changed to 22, which is good, I guess. But his splash radius went from 2.5 here to 6, and that's his normal splash radius from right here is 6. But in original, his splash radius is like, you know, 5. But here I nerfed it, like I said, at 2.5, and that's the current of doing, you know, cashiers. By the way, that's cashiers basically stuff. Like, because cashier has 2.5 when you place him down, and then when you upgrade him, he gives you 50 cash, but his splash radius goes up to 3.5. And for level 3, I made this $200 cheaper because his original cost is $1,600, which is a total cost. It's being $26,000, which right here is actually for this rework is $2,400, and his fire rate is 3.6 instead of it being. Let's see here. Yeah, instead of it being 5. Because his fire rate, when you first press it down, is on 6. Since I made that 4, I decided to make this like 3.6. So that way it's not too overpowered, if that makes sense. So his damage is still 20. His range is still 22. His splash damage is still 10, like the original. And his splash radius is still 6. Full DPS is 5. And Bowler's old DPS is like 4, so not much really. Just made him shoot faster, really. That's about it. All right. Next upgrade is $5,600, which the original is $6,000, and he does 20 DPS in total. His cost efficiency is 432.5, damage being 80. His range going up to 24 instead of 22. His fire rate is still 5 from that, and his splash damage is 40, and his splash radius is 7. Bowler here of cost the reworker bowler here costing $5,600, fire rate being 3.6, damage still being 80, range still being 24, splash damage still being 40, splash rate is still being 7, and then full DPS is 22. Total cost is being $8,000, which is around $650 cheaper than the original. Level 5. Level 5 bowler originally is $18,000. Total cost being $26,650 in total of his cost. His DPS is 62.5, and his cost efficiency is 426.4. His damage being 250. His range being 26 instead of 24. His fire rate being 4 instead of 5. And his splash damage being 125 instead of 40, and his splash radius being 8 instead of 7. For rework, cost being $14,000, fire rate being 3.3, damage being 250, range being 26, splash damage being 125, splash radius still being the same, like I said, doing 8 still. However, his DPS is doing 75 DPS, and his total cost is a Zachary $22,000, which is $23,000, 650 cheaper than his original cost. Now, as you see what I mean by rework, the only thing I want him to be reworked of is his placement being slightly cheaper than $800, his fire rate being a slightly lower, and nothing else. Really, that's about it. His placement, upgrades being cheaper, like slightly cheaper. They don't have to make it way cheaper. Again, these right here are slightly cheaper than the original. It's not like incredibly difference of cheap, like expensive. Still pretty expensive to get the tower down for what he does, but not super expensive like before. And his DPS actually makes more sense of what he should be doing. But anyway, that's that, right? And I'll gladly show each tower. So let's go here. Bowler. I'm sorry. All right. Cashier. Cashier, like I said, his splash radius being 2.5, going up to 3.5, and he makes you $50. And then, however, his splash radius isn't free. They still haven't changed Cashier's stats, by the way, from this. But 1 DPS. Again, he only costs $300, then $250 to upgrade, so that's in total of, $550, which is $50 less than Boar's placement, and he's already doing 1 DPS with, yeah, $50, yeah, it's crazy. There's Cashier. That's the difference, movie. Oh yeah, Manager. Manager is a good way to test this actually, because Manager costs 2,000 to place down. His DPS is still higher than Boar's, like a lot higher, 8.33. So level 1 and 2 is still more bad than Managers, like way more bad. Manager, like here, level 3 costing $5,000. And Bowler level 3 is costing 2,400, and he does 5 DPS, so he's like allowed doing this DPS like what Manager does at level 1. Then level 4 right here, which is 22 DPS for, you put him down, and then you, like, just say you get him level 4, which is 5,600, and it costs $8,000. Manager, so level 4, does 40 DPS, and you can see right here, 4,500, total cost being $9,500. He does 40 more DPS than Bowler. And then, of course, Bowler doing level 5, doing 75 DPS, total cost is $14,000, and it's still higher, $4,000 higher than Manager, and still higher from total cost as well. He does 75 DPS, and then this is his total cost. This is Manager's total cost. But the good thing about Bowler is that he also has the splash damage to make up for his DPS being lower, and since he's still costing a lot more than Manager to put down. And his range also helps out. So, that's Manager. Now, Pizza Chef. I thought is a good example. Pizza Chef, still the most expensive tower in the game. So, we're just going to focus on the max DPS. I think that's more better focusing on. Pizza Chef has bounce, and from what I figured out about Pizza Chef is that damage decrease, that doesn't mean it fully decreases damage for that reason. So, he gets bounces, and when he gets bounces, they start doing this. So each bounce is doing 20 damage, and his normal damage output is 50. That's what Pizza Chef kind of works. And then max level, Pizza Chef does 550 damage every legit 4 seconds. And his each bounce damage is 150, and his bounces do 3 bounces. And you can put down 8 Pizza Chefs, which is really expensive cost amount. So, here's this. DPS. So, Bowler rework, 75 DPS in total. So, yeah. Bowler does, let's just say his DPS higher than Pizza Chef. But max DPS, still, Pizza Chef does more. And then 137.5, and then, that's Pizza Chef's normal DPS, and then Pizza Chef's max DPS being 325. So, again, this rework makes Bowler, not better than Pizza Chef in a way, not better than Manager, but it makes him catch up to around that skill. At some situations, maybe Bowler would be better at Manager then, because, yeah, Manager is a single target hit, but I feel like on bosses, Manager would still be better to use, in a way, because he does 250 every hit, and Manager is better at, since he has faster fire rate, he's also better at tankier animatronics that have defense, because since Bowler does 250 and it's the defense, since Manager has a fast fire rate, a really fast fire rate, it kind of does better against more enemies that have extreme defense and a lot of health, because Manager does do a lot of shooting really fast. But it's the same thing when it comes to Pizza Chef. Pizza Chef struggles with higher defense enemies because he shoots slower than Manager. But Manager and Foxy Fighter is another good one. Foxy Fighter and Manager are like really good at taking bosses like that have a lot of defense when Health Inspector can't decrease them all the way. Let's say an enemy has 50 defense in total, and Health Inspector takes like 25 of that. That means Manager still is useful, and Foxfire is also still useful at that point to take out that enemy. And don't forget, you can put down 15 Foxy Fighters, so that takes care of it for you. So that way, Bowler and Pizza Chef are more of the towers that you can take out good groups of really healthy enemies. So, again, Bowler right here, it just makes Bowler a way better tower to get for what you have to do to get him. This doesn't make him... This puts him in the category of probably one of the best towers in the game now, if they reworked him like that. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm serious. That puts him into where, okay, he's a good tower. And then people would see that more and use him more. And he'll be like more usable than what he is right now. People are not using him right now because he's too expensive and he's too slow for the damage output he does. If Bowler gets this rework, I promise you're going to be wanting to use him more. Like, way more than you probably ever even try to use him before. Now, another thing I made in docs. Alright, another thing I made in docs is how to farm. Oh, actually, plus... I made this also in the server. If you guys struggle on farming, now to get this document, I'm gonna put a link into the description. Like I said, for Fnaf TD's server. But what you do to get to here, once you join Fnaf's TD server, is you go to suggestions, and then in suggestions, click on the suggestion of strat suggestions of the tags, and then search up how to farm in Fnaf TD, and then this should pop up for you if you search that up.